I woke up screaming, looking around once again to a completely empty room. I stared in the dark and looked around wildly to make sure I was home in my room. Looking at my bedside table at the clock, it was the same time as before. The dreams were getting worse. 3:30 a.m. I closed my eyes. When I did, I felt hot breath on my face and menacing laughter rang in my ears. The alarm clock went off and I sat up slowly, blinking myself awake and looking around the room. The sun came in through the window, bright and appalling to someone who was still waking up. Rubbing my eyes, swinging my feet over the edge of the bed, standing up, and making my way to the bathroom. The toilet flushed, and I went to the sink looking in the mirror. My eyes had dark rings under them. I'm only 13, and my face looked like an adult after what they had a graveyard shift. My name is Jenny. I live with my mom and dad and go to middle school. Another thing to know about me is I also suffer from night terrors. Every night there are nightmares, and lately sleep has become a chore. Looking a bit more closely in the mirror, my chestnut brown hair was a complete mess from rolling around in the bed. It's sticking up in random angles, an iconic patch of proof of just how much actual sleep I got. After wetting my brush in the sink, racking it through my hair, trying to get it to lie flat, I shrugged and walked out of the bathroom, putting on clothes and grabbing my book bag before running down the stairs. I snatched a piece of toast from the kitchen and ran out the door. I walked to school on the usual route. The sideway was busted up in some places, and the roots producing from the ground cracked the concrete, so I had to watch where I walked to avoid stumbling. My eyes were fixed on uneven ground, causing me to walk straight into a kid. Falling back on my butt, I looked up and started to apologize when he turned and grinned at me. He was short, red hair, and large, dark eyes. He was carrying a small blue book bag over his shoulder. He looked like just an average elementary school kid. All he was missing was the Power Ranger lunchbox and the small group of giggling friends. I couldn't speak though. For some reason, I couldn't get the "I'm sorry for bumping into you" out. He grinned and ran off. Standing up, I watched him go. What the heck was that all about? Shaking it off, I went to school. The bell rang and I started home. It was mid-afternoon, meaning my parents wouldn't be home and I would be bored. Letting out an aggravated sigh and continuing to my house. The small sound of footprints behind me caught my attention as I turned down another path home. Peeking over my shoulder, there he was. The little boy from this morning was following me. Blue book bag still over his shoulder, and his dark eyes fixed on me. He was smiling. I stopped, and so did he. "Do you want something?" He stood there and stared at me, grinning still. It really made me mad. "Get lost, kid. Go home." I started to stomp off. I glanced back and he was still grinning. He waved at me as I left, and I quickened my pace. When I got home, I locked the door behind me, panting a bit from the partial run home. What a weirdo, I thought as I fixed a snack and sat on the couch. I jumped as someone banged on the front door to my house. I stood up slowly and walked to the front door. The knocking continued. It was getting louder, and they were walking faster than before. I was getting mad again. I ran the rest of the way to the door, unlocked it, and threw it open. Nothing. No one was at the door. I stepped outside and looked around a bit. Hello? Is anyone there? No answer. I walked back into the house and locked the door. I made it to the couch, and the knocking started again. This time, I was frozen. I stared at the door, the wood shaking on its hinges from the force of the knock. I wasn't imagining it. Someone had to be there. I walked over slowly this time. Then, instead of opening the door, I raised up slowly on my toes to look out the peephole. Eyes, large, dark eyes, grinned at me through the hole. I jerked back and stumbled. The knocking stopped. Who is it? My voice cracking a bit. Once again there was no answer. I looked through the peephole again slowly. The eyes were gone. I opened the front door and peeked around it. On the walk in front of the door, there was a small blue book bag. I gritted my teeth. That little jerk, what the hell was he playing at? Not funny, you little jerk, get lost. Slamming the front door and locking the bolt with a loud click, I stomped back into the living room. The front door jerked open behind me. I screamed, but nothing was there. I shifted, feeling a bit shamed. I did lock it just now, didn't I? I walked back over and locked the door again after shutting it. Laughter echoed behind me and I spun around. Again, nothing there. I shivered, then went to my room. I grabbed out my flashlight and climbed into bed. I woke up again at 3:30 a.m., this time to the soft sound of laughter. This continued for days. The boy followed me to school, and then, on the way home, he was grinning at me the whole time. Silent, keeping far enough back that I would try to confront him, he would run off grinning with an echoing giggle. What? Do you want me to play with you or something? It stopped him. His smile slipped a bit, and he asked softly, Do you want to play with me? He stared at me. I lost it. Who the heck would want to play with some stuttering little stalker like you? Get lost and stop following me. Giving him a glaring look, and what I thought was a well-deserved single-finger salute. You shouldn't say stuff like that to me, he said softly. My friends don't like it when people are mean to me. Well, tell your friends they can bite me. I turned on heel again and stomped away. This time the boy stood still for a second, and when I glanced back, he was grinning again. I glanced back a second time and he was gone. I went home and locked the door, went to bed, taking the flashlight. I closed my eyes to a soft sound of laughter. Something jerked at my blankets and hissed laughter at me. Let's play. Let's play, the voices echoed. Who's there? Sitting up with the flashlight, as soon as my body left the blanket, something slashed at me. I woke up in the hospital with my mom and my forehead with a set of stitches. They told me I'd fallen out of bed due to my night terrors and sliced my head on something. They haven't found what it was. I told my mom about the laughing and the little boy. I told her about the voices in my room, and she just stared at me with a disapproving look and took me home. That night, I pulled the blankets around me and waited in the dark. Except, of course, from my flashlight that I clutched to. Then there was a loud funking noise. Who's there? Come out and play. Something giggled outside the covers. Why should I come out? I was answered with giggles and hisses. We can't come inside. It's against the rules, the voice said, echoed by others, now as if to highlight that it used the word we instead of I. There was no way I was coming out if they couldn't come under the covers. I tried to force myself into believing it was a dream, but the voices continued all throughout the night and into the morning. When the sun came up, the voices had gone, and I went through my usual routine. The boy didn't follow me to school or home, but that night the voices were back again, and I stayed up through the night clutching my flashlight until the sun rose. This had gone on for 4 nights in a row. The laughter and the voices, I had told my mom, and she told me to stop it, that I was too old to believe in monsters. I shuddered and went to my room. I climbed into bed with my flashlight as always. My eyes were like leaded weights. I pulled myself further under the blankets and held tight to my flashlight and shut my eyes slowly. I made sure that the blankets were tucked in around me, so nothing was sticking out. The flashlight stayed on as I slept. The next morning, I jerked awake at the sound of my mom shaking me. "Jesus Christ, John, Jenny is bleeding. John, hurry!" she shouted to my father, looking toward my bedroom door. "Jenny? Jenny, what happened? What happened to your arm?" I looked down, blinking slowly. Blood soaked the side of my bed. It was everywhere. Sticky, sweet. No one ever really says how blood is in real life. In the movies, it's red and thin, runny like water. But not in real life. That wasn't even close. And there's so much more to real life. The copper smell choked me as I made myself look down at my arm. Slices upon slices covered my upper forearm and hand. Pieces of flesh dangled from my fingers were twitching on their own, showing the muscle and tender liver. I felt dizzy. As I tried to sit up, falling onto the floor. My eyes were trying to focus as I stared under the bed. Eyes grinned at me, large, dark eyes with huge, dilated pupils, but the space around showing too much white, large, happy eyes. I hear a strange slurping, sucking, and the sound of something being swallowed. I watched a piece of skin disappear under those smiling eyes. Then there was darkness. I was released a few days later. My parents had committed me to the hospital for an attempted suicide. The doctors had told my parents my mental health seemed perfectly fine and to take me home. I had screamed and fought. The eyes weren't at the hospital. They were at home. I blinked heavily and the doctor gave me heavy treatment for anxiety, and the medication made me feel tired and weak. I tried to protest as my parents led me to my room to rest. They put me in my bed, tucked me under the covers. Mom, you can't leave me alone in here. Believe me, Mom, they'll get me. Mom, please." As I cried and sobbed, she turned to leave. She turned and looked at me with a small smile and tilted her head. "Now, Jenny, you know you are old enough to know that there are no monsters under the bed. Now get some rest, okay?" She slowly pulled the door closed behind her. I shivered and pulled myself into the center of the bed, pulling the covers closer around me with my good hand, making sure this time I wouldn't let anything slip out on accident. I swayed and tried to keep my eyes open. I heard rustling around my bed and slow laughter. "She's back." "Who's back?" "What's her name?" "Jenny. Jenny. They call her Jenny." "Yes, Jenny. We want you to come play with us, Jenny." "Yes, Jenny, we missed you." The voices surrounded me and continued to plead at me to come out. I squeezed my eyes tight, trying to block out their voices. Suddenly the voices stopped. A large thunk rang out in the room, and then the sound of something dragging. Soft giggling followed. I slowly opened my eyes to see the happy eyes staring at me from under the edge of a blanket. "Hi, Jenny. I missed you." The voice hissed at me, soft and sweet. I screamed. I got back from the doctor the next day. He had upped the dosage, and now I could barely talk. My hand was still bandaged up, and I couldn't move it. I felt heavy. My mom carried me to bed this time, supporting almost all my weight before setting me into bed. I held back tears, begging at her. "Please, Mom, don't leave me here with them. They're here. They're real. I'm not crazy, Mom. Please, no." The door shut behind my mom, leaving me in the dark. I jerked the flashlight out and held it tight, the light on the end cutting through the dark. I huddled under the blankets, and the voices started again. I prayed. This continued for a few days. The voices surrounded me every night, but they stayed out from under the covers, all of them coaxing and calling to me. "Jenny, Jenny." They whisper at me, so soft. The voices call to me in sweet undertones. Small hands reached out to me, pulling from every direction. "Jenny, Jenny, come play with us. Yes, yes, come play with us, Jenny." They echo over and over, grabbing hands, jerking at my pajamas, small, bright, glowing faces with smiles. "Jenny, come on, Jenny." Their laughter comes every night. I always pull myself further into bed and under the blankets. They can't come inside. I watched the shadows dance around me as I hide, a flashlight gripped in my hand like a sword. Their shadows dark all around the blankets as they pulled at it. They laugh and call to me. I can't sleep. If I do, they can pull me out. I don't want to play with the laughing voices. "Jenny, Jenny, Jenny." The voices are rasping now. They're still laughing, but it's hoarse and drawn out. "Come out, Jenny. Come play with us. We're lonely, Jenny. Come play." The blanket shifted around me. The flashlight gave out on me and I screamed. "Jenny, it's time to play now. Let's play together, Jenny." The blanket was gone, and then silence in the dark. I cursed and banged the flashlight on my head. "Damn it, turn on! Turn on!" The light jerked back on and I looked up into those grinning eyes. The voice was so soft. "I missed you, Jenny." I screamed. Police cars surrounded the house across the street, flashes of blue and red light. "Hey, what happened over there?" said a man to the woman across from him. "Shh, there was a murder." "What? Who died? What happened?" he said. "They found the little girl dead this morning. They're saying she was torn to shreds, but there were pieces missing, like something had eaten her." Jesus, that poor girl. What was her name? A little boy nearby giggled to himself, huddling on the curb and turning around to look at them with large, dark eyes. Her name is Jenny.